everybody? It's Mr. Wagstaff. Cool stuff to talk about today. All right, so we're still in the Civil War. We're just getting started on the Civil War. Today we're going to get to the first battle. A lot of cool moving parts here today. Hopefully, some of the stuff that we talk about today will like stick into your head for a long time to come. That is common with my students. I teach this a little differently than some other teachers. If any other teacher teaches it the same way I teach it, I would be shocked. But the way I teach is pretty effective, and I think you'll enjoy it today. So let me go ahead and make myself smaller here. Boop, 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 boop. All right. Put myself over here in the corner. All right. So we're talking about the Civil War. All right. The South has seceded. The United States is its own country. The Confederacy views themselves as their own country. The United States of America, especially Abraham Lincoln, doesn't view them as their own country because as long as he acknowledges or claims that the South is just in rebellion and not an actual official country, he doesn't have to ask Congress for a lot of the military stuff that he wants to do. All right. If they're their own country, he would. So that's a big reason why Abraham Lincoln is going to call this a civil war when in actuality is really between two separate countries. All right. So, but war used to be relatively simple. The way war used to work, all right, especially in the Civil War, it's like capture the flag. If you defeat the other army, all right, or you take over the other army's capital, you win. That's it, all right? So it's like capture the flag. If you can take over the other side's capital, the war is over. So Washington, D.C. is right here. Let me move myself down so you can see that. So Washington, D.C. is right here, all right? Remember, Maryland's under martial law. They're grumpy about it, which means he's basically put it under military control to keep them from seceding, all right? You have Richmond down here, all right? So Chancellorsville, Fredericksburg, it's hard to find a Civil War map that doesn't already want to label battles. None of these have happened yet, so ignore all these little X's. I'm just trying to show you Richmond and Washington, D.C., and how you would get from one side to the other. You're going to walk. They're like 90 miles apart. So Richmond decided to be real close so that they could have their army and everything and defend themselves from the aggressors that is the North. So Abraham Lincoln knows in order to win this war, all right, all he's got to do is take over Richmond. That's all he's got to do, all right? And it looks like this should be a relatively easy thing to do. The North vastly outnumbers the South. They have a vastly superior military because they have a military. The South is having to make everything from scratch. So it looks like they should just be able to walk down here and take over Richmond, and case closed, everything is good. Now, let me be very clear here. For the North to get what they want, which is to win the Civil War, they're going to need to invade and take over Richmond. What does the South want? To be left alone, to be their own country. The South has no reason to want to invade the North. All right? That's important to state. The Richmond doesn't want to take over Washington, D.C. Why do you want to take over the United States of America? You don't want to be a part of them. So the South is good just being left alone. So really important to understand in the Civil War, all the South has to do to win is not lose. As long as they never tap out, they win. Because all they want to do is be left alone. So as long as the South never surrenders, they're good. The North, the United States of America, actually has to defeat the South and force them to scream uncle and to come back into the United States. As long as the South never taps out, the South can't lose. All right? That's important to understand because on paper, and we're going to talk about this more in future lessons, on paper, this war should be really quick. This should take like a couple weeks because the North is vastly superior in all military applications than the South. However, the South is fighting a defensive war. All right? And we'll get more into that here in tomorrow's lesson. So, Lincoln, all right, he wants to, all he's got to do, send an army from Washington, D.C. down to Richmond. All right, the war has been going on about a week. There haven't really been any fighting yet. So he's like, dude, I just got to send somebody down, to Richmond and take it over. Right? Shouldn't be a thing. And the reason he believes this, he doesn't think anybody's actually going to fight, and the South doesn't either. The United States believes that when they show up with their United States military, the South will realize it got real quick and just like not fight, because that would be crazy. The South thinks that as soon as the North sees that they're willing to fight, that the North will realize that the South is being serious, and the North will be like, nah, we don't actually want any of this, and they'll retreat. So both sides think that the other side is going to quit. All right. So Lincoln's like, all right, I just need to send my boy down there and take care of this. So Abraham Lincoln's like, all right, grab my top general and send him on down there. We've mentioned this in a previous unit. Who is Lincoln's top general? It is this guy, Robert E. Lee. So this is a little sketch of Robert E. Lee. Robert E. Lee is the head of the United States military, right? Extremely competent, awesome general. So Lincoln's like, all right, y'all just send on Robert E. Lee on down there to take over the South. Well, he gets a letter from Robert E. Lee. For a while I thought he did this in person, but it's a letter. Makes sense. He would have just been arrested on the spot. Robert E. Lee is like, hey, look, man, I appreciate everything that you're doing, but I, Robert E. Lee, am from the South, specifically Virginia. You're asking me to take United States troops down to attack Richmond, Virginia, which is my home state. I would be fighting against my own family and things like that. So with all due respect, I quit. All right. He's like, I'm going to resign. He's like, and I'm going to be honest with you. All right. I don't want to pretend like anything's happening that isn't, or isn't happening that is. I am going to go join the Confederacy. I'm going to see if they need any of my services, but I just want to let you know I respect you. Thank you for everything you've done for me. I'm out. All right. So, and this is actually, the sketch has been added over, but this is his actual letter that he wrote to the Secretary of War at the time, saying he's quitting. So Robert E. Lee quit. And Lincoln's like, oh, that's ridiculous. So he's like, hey, Betsy. I magically just imagined he has a secretary named Betsy. And he's like, I need you to call, and we're just going to pretend like there's phones, that phones exist. He's like, our top general quit. I just need you to call the next general. And she was like, okay, getting on the phone with him. And he's like writing at his desk. And she's like, yeah, so, your second general, he quit too. And Lincoln's like, why'd he quit? He's like, cause he's from the South as well. And Lincoln's like, all right, go ahead and just keep calling until you get our next guy. She's like, okay. And then she comes back in and she was like, sir. And he was like, what? And she was like, so I called him and he was like, don't tell me this. She was like, yeah, he quit too. He's also from the South. He's like, all right, well, call number 4. She's like, I did. And he's like, and? He's like, quit. She's like, he's like, what about number 5, number 6, number 7, number 8? Like the top 13 generals quit. Going to the South. All of his leadership was all from the South. And he's struggling to find somebody to send down there to end this war. So I want to show you how I'm going to teach this. And I think you'll like this. All right. And I say that because I really like it. It would help me remember it. All right. Here's a picture of Abraham Lincoln. All right. So in the Civil War, he needs a bunch of generals. And he has generals that do stuff. Well, he's used to being in charge of a fantastic group of just top tier generals. All right. So we're going to pretend that Abraham Lincoln is a basketball coach. And I'm going to make myself a little smaller here. All right. Let me put myself up here in the corner. I'm going to make it a little smaller. So we're going to pretend like he's a basketball coach. All right. But the basketball team that he's in charge of is like the greatest basketball team of all time, the Harlem Globetrotters, right? If you've never actually seen the Harlem Globetrotters, they're awesome. They're actually, I've only learned this, I was way too old. So it's all a show. They're extremely talented basketball players, but the people they play basketball against are also in on the show. It's like professional wrestling. I was embarrassingly old before I realized that, because I went when you're a kid and it's the greatest thing ever. So, but that's beside the point here. So the Harlem Globetrotters, I want the picture of like the greatest basketball team, the greatest team ever. All right, we'll just say the Harlem Globetrotters, like they're unbeatable by anybody else. All right. So he's like used to being in charge of basketball coach of the Harlem Globetrotters, where these guys just go do their own thing. They dominate the opposing team. They haven't lost a game in like 50 ever. So they're awesome. But then, if these were all his generals, it's like all of a sudden they just quit and go to the other team. So now, Abraham Lincoln, instead of having the greatest team, he now has to coach against them, and his bench is empty. All right. So he's like, oh my gosh, my whole team left. All right. So he's like, all right, we can still beat them. we can beat these fantastic generals that are stellar. I just need to use the rest of my players, my bench warmers. All right. So he's like, all right, who are my bench warmers? These guys. All right. These are Lincoln's bench warmers. All right. So let me not throw this random picture of whatever college this is, Chico State. Let me not throw them under the bus. All right. So my apologies for using. So this is his team. These are his actual generals that he has left. All right. So this is their actual pictures. So these are the generals that he has left that he has to go try to fight against the greatest army or the greatest generals that America's ever had before. All right. So these are the guys that have to go try to fight against Robert E. Lee at some point, or this is who he has to choose from. So let me tell you who they are. All right. If I just told you their names, it's not going to mean anything to you. So let me reference who they are, and I'm going to move myself down here a little bit. Move myself down here at the bottom. So the first guy here, this would be the equivalent on your bench of this is the guy that got a little bit of playing time before. So he has a little bit of experience. He came off the bench a little bit. So he's got some experience. All right, he's not as good as the other guys, but hey, he's got some experience. The next dude here, this is like the old veteran. All right, like he's been on the team for a long time. His best days are behind him. He's slow. Emphasis on slow, and we'll talk about that more in the future. So you got this guy here. So this is the guy whose name you don't know, but he's been on the team for like a really long time, and you can't really remember what his name is. Now it's just embarrassing to ask him because you should have known what his name is. All right, this is the moron of the team. This guy's a complete moron. All right, this dude's a coward. This guy right here, he's the rookie. He's like, I'm new. He just made the team. So he's the rookie. And then this dude here, this guy, oh, Mr. Wagstaff, who's that guy? Yeah, that's the crazy dude. All right. This dude's like mentally unfit really to be on any basketball team or a general. So this is who Lincoln has to choose from. And if you're curious, yes, these are all real people and they all have a story, and I've derived their little nicknames from their actual stories. All right. So we will get to them all. Don't worry. And every story is fantastic. So who is Lincoln going to go with? All he's got to do is just grab somebody and have them march down to Richmond and take it over. So he's like, all right, random dude here, the little guy that got playing time a little before all this stuff happened. That is General Irvin McDowell. You're in the game. All right. So this is an actual photograph. Not that the other one wasn't, but this is General Irving McDowell. All right. So this is the first guy Lincoln's going to put into, this is the first guy that Lincoln is going to put into, in charge of the military in order to send them down south in order to try to take over Richmond. All right. So what's going to happen? And this is crazy. All right. Let me see. Where's my... So the blue line here is where Irving McDowell's troops are going to walk from. All right. And they're trying to get down here to Richmond. So Irving McDowell gets an army together. Now, Irving McDowell gets sent out there and they give him, 50,000 troops. And he's like, all right, cool, let me train them. And Lincoln's like, no, you don't even need to train them, man. Like, we just drafted these guys. They get 3 meals a day. We threw a uniform on them. They probably don't even really know how to use a gun. Like, we gave them 3 days training. Just going down to Richmond. all that really matters here is the fact that they see the United States military show up. They see the shock and the awe, and then they scamper, and we take over Richmond, and the war's over, and nobody's going to fire a shot. And McDowell's like, I mean, that seems like a really dumb strategy to not train the guys before I take them down there. But hey, you are the boss. You tell me to do it, I'm going to do it. So Irvin McDowell starts marching down to Richmond. Now, there's an underlying concept that you got to understand for the Civil War. No secrets can be kept at all. At any point in the Civil War, secrets just don't matter. All right. So secrets, the reason they don't matter is because everybody knows everything that's going on. How's that possible? I don't know. I will tell you exactly how it happens here in the very first battle. As they're walking down south, they're moving really, really slow. Like crazy slow the United States military is because the men aren't trained at all. So they move like ridiculously slow for a military. You know who goes with them? Their families. That's right. The soldiers' families are traveling with them on this military campaign. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense to me either. You know who else is going with them? The media and the newspaper reporters. So every time these guys sit down to eat or anything like that, the newspaper's like recording it, like tap, 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 and sending it back, and it's being printed out. So everybody knows exactly where this army is and what they're doing, even literally what they had for breakfast. You know who else gets that information? The South. Richmond. Now, you're probably like, I bet you Robert E. Lee's down there licking his chops because he's such a good general, like you said. Now, all that is true. Robert E. Lee shows up in the South and is like, hey guys, I just quit the United States of America. I'm here to help you out. They don't trust him. They don't trust him as far as they can throw him. And Robert E. Lee completely understands this. He's like, yeah, I wouldn't trust me either. Why do you think they wouldn't trust him? Well, the reason they don't trust him, because he could be a spy. They're like, yes, this is exactly what Lincoln would want. Let you in charge of our military, and then you'll just surrender. Because that is a power that whoever is in charge of the Confederate military has the authority to do, is like surrender the entire military. So they're like, yeah, absolutely not. We are not going to put you in charge. And Lee, all right, Lee's like, all right, sounds good. What would you like me to do? And they're like, you go wash some dishes. And he's like, washing dishes, huh? You over here washing dishes? Okay. All right, well, I'll just wash some dishes. Y'all just let me know. Y'all just let me know if y'all need any help. I'll just sit over here and wash some dishes. All right, y'all let me know. So, here at the start of the Civil War, Robert E. Lee is not in charge of the United States military, or in charge of the Confederate military. He will be eventually. The reason is because they don't really trust him, so they got him doing some menial stuff. He's not actually washing dishes, but for my story, he's washing dishes. All right. So while Lincoln's like not in charge, they got to figure out how what they're going to do. Richmond does with this approaching army from Washington D.C. So there's they scrounge together the armies that they can. It was led by a guy named P.T. Beauregard at the time. We don't talk a lot about him, so I'm not even going to use his name. So there is another general that's going to be here with them. They're kind of lesser generals at the time. There is a guy named Jackson. General Jackson is going to be rolling up with P.T. Beauregard up here to try to cut them off because they don't want to let them get all the way down to Richmond and then have a standoff with them. So they're going to ride north and meet them halfway. So the halfway point is this area called Bull Run. All right. So the belief is by the South is when the South shows up, the North will see the South and poop themselves and run away because they're like, oh my gosh, I'm so afraid. Like nobody thinks there's going to be actual any fighting. The South believes that once the North realizes that they are being serious and they're willing to fight for this, the North won't actually want this war because it's already unpopular. Most of the North, the people in the North are happy this has happened and they no longer have to deal with slavery because they left. It's Lincoln. Lincoln's the one that's really pushing to try to bring this back together. So as they're going to march north, fully expecting the North to drop their guns and runs away. The North feels like as soon as they see any type of resistance from the South will see all the shiny new uniforms, because the North has uniforms, the South doesn't. They're just showing up in farmer gear. Their uniforms and all this other stuff, and they vastly outnumber the South, that the South will poop themselves and then run away. Neither side actually believes that there can be any fighting here. So much so, and this is just dumb, insane, that they're marching north, the North is marching south, and they meet at Bull Run. They come out of woods on each side, and they sit there and look at each other, and it's almost like catches them both off guard that there's like another army here to fight. All right, so when they see each other, all of their families, all right, go up on a hillside, because all the families that came from Washington, D.C., go up on a hillside over here to watch the battle like it's a spectator sport. This is an actual photograph right before the Battle of Bull Run of people who came to picnic and watch the Battle of Bull Run. I mean, this is insane. And here's why. You wouldn't do that today. Why? Mr. Wax, I wouldn't do that because they're going to like shoot people and people get blown to bits, and they're going to watch their family members get murdered and hacked to death in the middle of a field. It's going to be really bad. Yeah, it would be. And we know that. You know why we know that? Because we have media. Like, we've seen movies and media reports and stuff like that. These people live in a fantasy world. There's no magazines. There is no picture books. There's no TV. There's no documentaries. They know war, but they don't actually have any concept of what's getting ready to happen. Even today, tons of soldiers suffer from PTSD from what they've experienced in combat, even though they had a pretty good idea going in from like TV and stuff, but it's astronomically different. All right. So even going in with an general 1% idea of what war can be like, is still traumatizing to people today. This just shows the disconnect that the American people had with this war that's getting ready to take place. It's just this is bonkers. So what happens is everybody shows up here, and the two armies are looking at each other. Now, neither one of them are organized because they just got thrown together, just hordes of people on both sides. Somebody from one side just says, "Your mama!" like yells across the other ones, and somebody else is like, "Your mama!" And they start talking trash about each other. All right. And then after they start yelling at each other and both armies get in there, they're yelling, somebody fires a shot. And then the other side opens fire, and this side opens fire, and then your buddy's head next to you just explodes. Like people's arms and legs start getting blown off. It's just absolutely pandemonium. Nobody's trained for this. So then, because a musket, it takes like 20 seconds to reload it. All right. And that's what they started with, was like muskets. And a lot of them aren't well trained. So that's 20 seconds if you're trained. So after they fire, what a lot of them do, because they have like bayonets on the front of them, is instead of reloading, they just charge across the field at them as the other people, and they just run across the center of the field and just start hacking each other to death with these bayonets. This is a painting of it's called the First Battle of Bull Run, because, spoiler alert, there's going to be a second battle, because it's right in the middle. But right now, this is just the First Battle of Bull Run is how it's historically referred to. Everybody's just like hacking each other to bits in the middle of this field. It is completely unorganized, all right? Well, the South is wildly outnumbered here, all right? So the South starts to retreat, and people start running away, all right? Now, generals, all right, in these battles are not on the front lines, all right? That would be dumb. They've learned this from the Revolutionary War. If your general gets shot, that's really bad. So generals are behind the armies, all right? And they're usually on horse, all right? I also need to point out here, because we will reference this multiple times, prior to the invention of the tank, the deadliest weapon on land is a trained man on a trained horse. It's called cavalry, all right? If the cavalry It's trained men on trained horses. The horses ain't no joke. The horses are trained in combat as well. You don't ever see that on movies because they don't train horses to murder people, but horses are like, you don't mess around with horses. So a trained horse is no joke in combat with a man on top of it. And so one man on a horse is equivalent to like 10 men on the ground. It's just how it is. So the generals usually have a war horse that they're on. But they don't get up in the middle of it because you don't want to get shot because you have to lead. So as the South starts feeling like they're losing and they're getting overwhelmed, they start to retreat and head back the other way. Like they start running away. All right. So the general that we're going to talk about right here is General Jackson. So General Jackson is behind his troops and he's on his horse like he's seeing these guys go run by him and he's like, nah, I can't have that happen. So as all his men are running past him, he refuses to retreat. He rolls up into the middle of this crowd, and you can actually, I think this is supposed to represent him here. He pulls out his sword, is his saber that the commanding officers have, and just starts hacking at people in the middle of this battle, like taking off arms and faces, and just, it's like a big old fountain of blood. It's just awful. So as the Southerners are running away, they're like, they turn around behind them to look, and they see Jackson up there, and the South stops retreating, and they turn around, and they're like, oh my gosh, look at General Jackson. He's not retreating. He's standing strong like a stone wall. From this moment on, General Jackson is known as Stonewall Jackson. And they're like, if he's not retreating, I'm not retreating either. So the South, because of Stonewall Jackson's actions, turns around and charges back into battle. The North, completely untrained here, wants to know, why is the South coming back into battle? They must be getting reinforcements. Oh my gosh, what's happening? And the North panics. Once the South comes back in with their second wave, the North drops all their weapons and turns around and retreats north. And this is the very first battle of the war. The first battle of Bull Run is a sound defeat of the United States military by the Confederate States of America. All right. It does, it shows us a whole lot about what this war is getting ready to be. So this is Stonewall Jackson. He is like a folk hero after this. I mean, people love Stonewall Jackson. So these generals, it's so well researched as the Civil War is. I got great quotes from everybody. This quote from him says, "Captain, my religious belief teaches me to feel as safe in battle as in bed. God has fixed the time for my death. I do not concern myself about that, but to always be ready, no matter when it may overtake me." Stonewall Jackson. He's basically saying, God already knows when I'm going to die. Doesn't really matter what I do. If it ain't my time to die, I ain't going to die today. That matters. Nothing I can do. If I'm supposed to die today, I'll die choking on my toast. Might as well just go into battle. Like, that type of mentality will allow you to be pretty brave. Might get you killed, but it will allow you to be pretty brave. And so Stonewall Jackson, after the first Battle of Bull Run, is considered a massive, massive hero in the United States. So the North runs back. All right. So Irving McDowell, on the bench. Lincoln is never happy when his generals lose. And it happens a lot because they get beat by the superior generals in the South, like Stonewall Jackson here. So it is really important to point out a situation that exists. And historians talk about this sometimes, and it's kind of dumb. When the Northern Army retreated, what is standing between... Let me go back up here to this picture where I'm at, right? All right. Once the Northern Army retreats, and it's gone, all right, what is standing between the Southern Army and Washington, D.C.? Nothing. Nothing. And people were like, if Stonewall Jackson had taken his men and taken over Washington, D.C. at the end of the first Battle of Bull Run, the South wins the Civil War in the first week, and the war is over. All right. But he doesn't, and the South fights for years and years, and then it will eventually lose. All right. He should have gone and taken over Washington, D.C. And that's what historians and strategists say sometimes, and that's dumb. I'll tell you why. We've already talked about it. Why does the South not want to take over Washington, D.C.? Because they don't want to be part of the United States of America. If you take over Washington, D.C., you then control America, and they don't want that. They want to be left alone. So, yes, could Stonewall Jackson have gone north and taken over Washington, D.C.? He probably could have. But why would he? Their goal is to defend the South, not take over the North. The United States of America's job is to take over the Confederate States of America. After the first Battle of Bull Run, it becomes obvious that this war is not going to be easy. It's going to be brutal. Both sides are willing to fight to the death. And now everybody has to kind of take a step back, take a breath, look at what's getting ready to happen, and then start preparing legit armies. You can't just send them down with 3 days of training. So you have to step back, create full functioning armies, and actually come up with a game plan on how you're going to win this very intricate war that is obvious is getting ready to take place. All right, that's as far as we're going to get today. I will see you guys tomorrow.